Now I'm going to go into Unity and create a new and choose 2D. And I'll call this array prefabs. Click create. This is going to be building upon the Pac-Man game. Show you some new items you can do with it. And I'm going to click project here, bring up the assets. Here's probably already that way. I'm going to go to Google and go grab a yellow dot, though I could create one. Maybe just easy to create one. Go to paint.net. Down here, choose the shapes. And then here, choose my circle, ellipse. I want it to be solid, so I'll do this drop down here and I'll draw a filled shape. If I want it with an outline, then I can choose that. And I want yellow. Come down here and you choose the default one down here or choose my own brand of yellow. Then if I click over here and draw, I see my circle. It's bizarre, I don't see a yellow there. I think that'd be one of those default colors down here, but that'll work. Is that yellow? Yeah, or boy, I must be going colorblind. We'll go with that color though, whatever that is. Yeah, it kind of looks yellow, doesn't it? Now, if I do an edit cut, I won't let me. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and apply it. To apply it, I will click something else. I'll click the magic wand right here. The magic wand allows you to choose pixels that are roughly the same color to each other. So if I click this white area here, it'll select all the white. And if I do an edit cut, you see how it gets rid of those. And now I can draw a rectangle. If I choose the rectangular tool up here, I can draw a rectangle around my dot. And I think I got it. I can always do a control and zoom in, and that isn't good enough. Not that it has to be real tight because you can apply a collider on it. Now I have that selected, do an edit copy and edit paste in the new image. And that'll be good enough. So then we'll do a file save. Yellow dot. Then click save. By making it transparent, it'll make it so you can see everything behind it. Come over to here, right click in the gray area down here in the assets, choose import new asset. And I guess I need to go into pictures, choose yellow dot. Now we want to drop this on our form temporarily. So drop it up there. Now over here in this hierarchy down here, I'll grab this yellow dot and move it back and drop it here. And you see it does a little black window around it. This is our prefab. Now I can delete this one. Okay. Now I got my prefab down here. Over here I can open a prefab. So if I click open prefab, it'll bring this up. I can do some modification with it and so forth. And you see the tag up here says untagged. So I drew the drop down on that, and I'm going to choose add tag. Click the plus right here. And I got that called yellow dots. Click save. Now to go back, you can just simply click this right here, take it out of that scene. Click down here to get this to come up. Click open prefab. And then the tag, now we do the drop down and choose yellow dots. So you have to go and create your tag first and then you assign it. Everybody good so far? Okay. I do the arrow to go back to my main screen. Okay, so we also want a collider on this. So I'm designing my object here. So I click add component, and probably a circle collider would be best since it's a circle. Now my circle collider, I don't know how good it is, but if I drop my prefab back up here, I can go into edit here and it looks pretty good. You know, I could click with my left mouse button and grab these and move them down a little bit. Maybe get a little bit more precise. Use my mouse wheel to scroll, zoom in, zoom out if I need to. That looks perfect, so take that off. Now, I delete this. Now, if I drag this back up here, you see the I realized what I was doing. I was editing the instance of that, not the actual prefab. See how the edit collider is not quite right now? So delete that. Come here, I'll click open prefab. And this is where it should have been. Now if I do my edit collider, now it looks pretty good. Okay, so I'll click this over here on the left-hand side, this arrow to go back out of that, back to the main screen. Now, I made that mistake earlier. So I was refreshing my memory before this morning, before classes started, and I was doing the same thing. I was dragging them, dropping up here, and making the changes. And you have to make it down here at the prefab level. Okay. So now we want to create an empty. So do game object, create empty. Now this is going to be our driver for our program. And so you see it's by default called game object, but you could call this whatever you want. Main driver. Maybe this is where to keep track of our score. That'd be one method. This is actually going to keep track of our, or at least create our instances. So it needs a code that goes along with it. I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to right click on the gray area and choose create C# script. And I'll call this yellow instance. Press enter. And then double click on that. Okay, so we're over here, and I'm going to cheat. I already got some code already written, so I'm going to copy it. And I'll talk about what all the different codes doing and so forth. Okay, now what I've done here is I've named this public game object name of prefab. This is going to be the name of our object that this is going to keep track of. Now this is an array of game objects. So this is all our game objects. Remember, array is like a list of items. So we can have a list of 50 dots, for example. Now, if I go ahead and save this, I come over to Unity. Now I need to have my empty, my main driver selected right here, and I need to associate that with this code. So I can click and drag that code over here. And that attaches the yellow instance that we're working with our main driver, our empty. This empty will always be there. It'll never get destroyed. It'll be there the entire time the scene is active. Now you notice it says name of prefab says none now. I don't know if we can drag and drop the prefab over here. I did a little bit earlier, different in my code. I dragged it up here and then assigned it. But let me go ahead and try to drag it here. Okay. So that's going to associate this prefab with the script. Okay, so let me come down here to my start. I'm going to steal this bit of code right here. I'll paste this in. Okay, so we got x equals 0, continue while x is less than or equal to 5, then increasing it by 1. And then I got my name on my prefab here. The instantiate creates a new instance. So this name of the prefab is the yellow dot, and we're creating an instance of it. Now we're doing a new vector 2 that creates a new like point where we're going to put it. And I had the y hard coded, 1f, and the f means floating point, so that means the y will always be 1. X will change. X will go from 0 to 5. And then this just is our standard transform rotation. So go ahead and save that. Now we'll try to run this to see if I do need to drop a yellow dot up here, if it'll create them. That puts my 5 or 6 yellow dots up there. So if I was wanting to create a pattern, you could have whatever pattern you want. Like if you have your yellow dots going down. Now I'm going to have you use this same principle on your Pac-Man game, at least on part of them. The idea is, I know you can do that Pac-Man game different. You could drop your yellow dots on there, but you probably couldn't eyeball making them the exact same distance apart. But then you could also set that over in the attributes on the right-hand side. But I want you to get used to using objects. Because if you're going into game development, that's an important piece of it, is that you work with object-oriented programming is what it's called. Okay, so if I wanted to go the Y's for INT, I think I can use X again. Although Y's might make more sense. Let's go to 7, Y plus plus, and do the instantiate here. Set this to -2, turns my X. And for my Y, this is going to be Y. Like that. And I'll save that. Then run that. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Probably need to bring it down some. So I would go from -3 to 4. There we go. So if you're wondering, well, how in the world would I determine where I need to put it in terms of that game instead of sitting there and guessing over and over? Well, if you just drop your original picture on there, and if you move this around, you'll see the X and Y. So you'll know exactly what's what. So you can put it at the beginning of a list and put it at the end of a list and then plan accordingly. Now my prefab is too big. But you notice if I drop that on there, how big it is and so forth. Um, oh, these have to be reversed here. I hard coded -2 for the X, but then the Y, I had it based upon my looping. Okay, delete that. So I'm gonna open up a prefab again. Again, there's no instances of it. At this point, I can shrink that down. That's not that bad right there. And close the prefab. Click that arrow to go back out. Now let's run it. So you have total control over what sizes you want on that. You notice when I run this, each one has its own instance. And they're all called the same thing. So how in the world would you, through programming, be able to access them? Well, they're like mindless dots, and we don't care to access each one individually. How we make the association is over here in a tag for each one of these. It says yellow dots. And so that's how we're going to refer to it in programming. We're just going to loop through it and handle it accordingly. Now, there may be times where you do need to have them as separate instances, like separate game objects, not as an array of prefabs. But if you got like dots, then dots work out real well. Okay, so if I, like I say, if I had, let me drop prefab under to see where it's at. Of course, my game is a little bit different than scene, but you'll get the idea. From the Y values, the Y values there is 1.8. And that's negative 1.1. Negative 1.1 to 1.8. And I'll delete that yellow driver. So go back to my code. And I could say for int, y is equal to negative, no memory, 1.1 to, or not 2, continue y is less than or equal to 1.8. And here you can do y is equal to y plus 0.1. So you don't have to sit there and put a plus plus. And unlike that, so we put an F on that. Oh, because this is an integer. Do I have to do this with a while loop then? Is there no way I can do this? Let's see. I never have tried that, but cool. Let's see if it works. Unfortunately, I didn't note down the X value. Okay. Now I'm going to look for my x value because I didn't note that. So x value somewhere here would be negative 7. Probably good. I'll delete that again. So I'm going to change that to negative 7 instead of negative 2. And save that. And let's go run it. Pretty close together. So instead of increasing it by 0.1, maybe I want to increase it by 0.3. In truth, you'd want to go look at these diameter, how far across your dot is, which also equates to the height or width. They should be the same. I didn't save it, did I? Very important that you save it to send it over to Unity. So I need a little bit more to alter on that, but you get the idea. I've opened my prefab. Radius, circular collider is 0.37. So probably 0.5 would be maybe 0.6 be on the safe side. If I run that, okay, that looks a little bit better being separate. Okay, so is there any questions on creating instances of it, positioning it on the screen? Right, less dots. Right. Huh. Um, I'm guessing maybe you're zoomed in a certain way here. Maybe. You see, there's a game option here, and there's a maximize on play. You only have 2 dots. Huh. Go ahead and share your screen, and let me see if I can see what's going on with it. Okay. Yes. So you're going from 1.1. Well, you're going from a positive 1.1. I went from a negative. Where it says, yeah, that's right there. Yeah, because it's not going through so many values when you don't have the negative there. And let's see. That's no problem. I should have thought of that, but when you said you went from more dots to less, that yeah, that confused me. Okay, let's see where we're at. Array of prefabs. So now we have all of our objects created, and so now we're going to put an object on there and check for collisions and see how to do that. So I'll go back to Unity. I'm going to right click and I'll choose import new asset. And might as well choose Pac-Man, I guess. I need code on Pac-Man to get Pac-Man to move to begin with. So I can come over here and create the script, or I can right click over here and choose create C# script. And I'll call this Pac-Man code. And then double click that. Up here, after a public class, in the first curly bracket, I'm going to declare vector2 position. Then down here, I'm going to say if input dot get key code dot, and you can do your eight WSD. I'm going to do the arrows. So I'm going to do my up arrow. Then I'm going to change the Y position. So position equal. I need curly brace. And position equals this dot transform dot position dot y equals position dot y plus speed. Now I need to put a speed variable up above, and then this dot transform dot position equal to position. Where I want to put the speed at is right up here, and I want to say public float speed. That way we can control it over Unity. We don't have to keep on changing it over here. I'm going to copy that and paste it. So then we'll have a down arrow, and that'll decrease my Y value. We'll have a right arrow, and that'll increase my X value. And we'll have a left arrow, and that'll decrease my X value. We'll give you a minute to, I'll save that. Is everybody still putting that code in? So now I'm come over to Unity. I need to attach that Pac-Man code to my character. So I'll drop my character up here. Well, that's a big Pac-Man. Shrink that down. There we go. Now take my Pac-Man code and drag and drop that over here to this instance. Change the speed to, I don't know what, 0.5, I guess, to start with. And while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and do an add component. And I want to do a circle collider. That'll probably fit them the best. And I could modify that a little bit, but that's probably not too bad to go with. Along with that, I want to add a rigid body. (2D) and set gravity to 0. Now let's try running that. A little bit too fast, but change that to where's speed? There it is. 0.25 maybe, go half as fast. If you have your speed too fast, it appears like he disappears from one point and reappears in another point. That looks better. Actually, like he's moving instead of transporting. So now we're ready to handle the collision. And where we're going to put the code at is, and I know because I screwed it up the first time. I have this morning I put the code on the main driver, the empty, and that's not where we want it. We want to put it on the Pac-Man because Pac-Man is where the collision is happening. So you have to be aware of where you should put the collision at. Put it on empty, it doesn't actually work. Okay, so let's go back over here to our Pac-Man, and down here before the last curly brace, we're going to type on collision enter 2D. So when it pops up, choose that, do a tab, and it'll put everything in there. And I'm going to go steal my code again, and I'll explain it. Okay. Right. Really? Somehow you shut off your what's that called? It's not hints, code completion. Really? I've never had it shut off before. It always pops up. His code completion isn't coming up when he does the on. Well, it sometimes works, but it doesn't work for that. Well, I know you can shut it off, but I don't understand why it's working sometimes and not others. Of course, since there's 21 million results of code completion not working. Hmm. Tool. Could be a bug with the new 2019 if you got that. Oh, maybe it's a bug with 2017, but it should pop up. But you're when you start typing, you're just typing on, like you just type on like that. How strange. Let me have you share your screen again. Let me stop sharing mine. Okay. Go ahead and share your screen. You're not in you're not in the right place. You see the last curly brace? It should be right for that. Yeah, it's context sensitive, so wherever you're at is where it does that. Hey, now ignore this Boolean last alien. I didn't even. We'll come back to that. Here we're defining an array of game objects. This is a similar type of definition we did over in the empty. Now I'm populating that game object, or array of game objects, by going out and finding all the game objects with the tag pink that says pink S, yellow dots. Now this is going to match our tag we created. That's why we created a tag, is we go out there and search for them. Now you can also search for by name, but name is a little bit more iffy because if you have different game objects kind of named the same, and may find one you don't want it to find. So the tags is the safest bet to go with. Now this temp I've declared as an integer goes out and gets the length of the array, so we can loop through it. There's also a way to just do a for each, but I like this because it's standard programming. Yeah, get rid of that debug. 'Cause my code doesn't always work, so I had to debug it to get it to work. Okay, so here I'm looping through from 0 because our arrays always start at 0, like we mentioned last time. And I'm going to one less than the length. So if I have 5 yellow dots, then it'll go from 0 to 4. And then I'm increasing it by 1. Now this is checking if the collision game object. That's what's coming in right here. So Unity's handling that for me. It says, "Hey, you just collided with this game object," and then it's checking to see if that's equal to that item in the array. And if it does, it destroys that item in the array. Now, when it destroys the item in the array, it reduces the length of it, so it's now got one less. So if I had 5 yellow dots after this code got done running, it'd have four yellow dots. You don't have to worry about that. Next time through, it'll go from 0 to 3, since there's only 4 left. Then if you destroy another one, it'll go from 0 to 2, 0 to 1, and so forth. Does that make sense what that code's doing? Is anybody still typing that? Okay. So if I come over here and run my game, the Pac-Man, and as the Pac-Man's moving around, collides with these, it destroys each one. You notice over on the left-hand side in the hierarchy, these are all our instances that have been created. Click back over here. Until the point where there's no instances left at all. Now, what we'd really like to do is when all the dots are gone, we just maybe we just won the game, or we want to go to a different level. Um, so we're going to take a look at how to change to a different scene, but that's how you destroy your objects. Let's have you share your screen again. Let's see. Temp. Oh, this is game object. Find game objects with objects. If that. Do I have single quotes in mind? Let me look. I have double quotes on mine around yellow dots. Mine's double. I don't know if you can put single or not. Some languages are interchangeable, some are not. And it could be they all have to be lowercase. I don't know if case matters on tags, but if your tag is set up, no, your tags are yellow. Yeah, you're fine on that. Oh, so yours all disappeared at once? Go back to your code. Um, Go back to your game and click Pac-Man. Yeah, the circle collider seems fairly small. No, no, when it hits one, it just it's acting like it's colliding with them all at once. Open your prefab. Okay, so yellow tag is yellow dots. And choose your, oh, you've got a capsule collider. Choose the edit collider on the capsule collider. Right there. Okay, so take off the edit. Hmm. So both colliders are reasonable. I'm going to request remote control briefly. So go ahead and click yes or allow when stuff pops up. And now don't touch your keyboard or mouse when I'm doing this. Okay. And there's code. So on collision enter 2D, collision game object, all game objects, integer temp. Um, all game objects is, oh, I think you're missing the, no? Game object, find game object with tag, yellow dots. Brand tx equals 0, x plus plus. Debug, step into. Okay, so it brings in all those dots. I see my array is populated. That looks like it's working. I thought there was a, here it is. Step into. Let's go down there. It destroys, should destroy one instance. And it didn't destroy them all. That's good. I think I see what it's doing. Oh. You don't have the if statement in there. So yours is going through and destroying every object. It made sense when I was debugging it because it was going through and did the destroy twice. And I'm thinking, why did it do the destroy twice? And then it hit me that there was no if statement there. I don't really understand how this works, to be honest. I just know it works. Because when it brings in the game object, when you run it, they all appear to have the same name. But somehow it keeps track that they must have some unique identifier that comes in with them. Oh, I mean, when you run it, if you look at each of these instances of the dots, they all appear to have the same name. But somehow there's some unique identifier that goes with them. Such a no, I'm guessing it's actually a unique identifier of some sort. But eh, it could be. Um, I never have bothered to explore it. If I get attached to Unity and I start investigating all the objects, all the game object attributes, then I probably could see it. But like I said, also they did have numbers on them. Now, what we want to put on now is if all our game objects are gone, and I'll have to modify this because I did my code a little bit different this morning. If it's all of it's gone, we want to bring up a new scene. First off, let's create a new scene. Okay, so it'll ask you to save the one you're currently on, but you can always do a file save anyway, and it'll save it. If I do a file new scene, right up here, now we haven't saved it yet. So if I want to save this, go file save. You could call it whatever you want. I think my example this morning I called it in game. Then click save. You'll see it appear down here. It looks like the standard Unity logo. You can move it to the scenes. It doesn't really matter where it's at. These folders are meant to organize so that if you get 1,000 game objects, 1,000 assets in here, they can get confusing. So if I drop this over here, then if I double click scenes, it's now over here. Our sample scene was our main one, and this is going to be our ending game. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of image you bring into it. I want to go back to assets here. By the way, they always recommend putting your prefabs in a folder. So, um, in theory, I wouldn't want to leave this yellow dot here. I'd want to put in a prefab folder. But I'm going to right click in this gray area. And I'm going to say create folder. Because I just want to show you how to create it. And see, we got a prefab there. I'm not going to move it, but I just want to show you how to create folders. Okay, I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to choose import new asset. I happen to have a mountain picture. So go to pictures, mountain. This would be like a screen that you've designed says game over on it or something like that. I'm not going to do that because I just want to demonstrate it. But I'll drag and drop it up here. It's a big mountain. Oh, zoomed. If I did a game, that'd show me what it looked like. When I zoomed out, you can see a little rectangle around here. That kind of told me where my viewing window was at. And that's what it looked like. Okay, so that's what we want to load up. If I do a file save, that'll save that scene. Now, if you run it now, what gets run is the scene you have loaded, which is not what we want. There's another way of doing this, but if you open the other scene, so if I go to scenes and double click sample scene, then this will be opened, which is what we want. Okay, so we created our scene. Now, right here, we want to check the length of this. So this is the part I'll have to play with. If all, or I need to go out and get the current length. So I'll come down here, paste that in. I'm going out and say, okay, what yellow dots do I have left? Now I think, though it'll probably be wrong, if my length is equal to 1, I don't know, it should be 0. Let me put 0 in there. This is when I want to load my new scene. See if it helps if I actually put length there. So this is going to return how many items are in our array. If we had 5 yellow dots left, it would return 5. Now our indexing goes from 0 to 4, but this is the actual length. So I think less than or equal to 0 should work, which probably means it won't. But now if it's less than or equal to 0, then I want to do this right here. I want to do a scene manager.load scene in game. Now we also have an import that goes at the top, importing our Unity Engine senior management. Learn to speak someday. That's why I got a little red squiggly. What is a scene? Might be a game over scene screen. Might be the start of your game. Click here to start your game. It might be a different level. So you'd have level 1, level 2, level 3, different levels you'd go to. And we're going to see how to transfer information between scenes. Is everybody still typing any of that? So I'll go ahead and save that. Let me run this. Like I say, I probably have that link wrong. I was playing with it a lot this morning to get it to work. Just didn't seem logical. But then again, it's pretty early. And it didn't work. So let me come here and set that less than or equal to 1. Still not working. Okay, well, I'm going to put a debug here. Listen equal to. So what I had to finally do over here, I had equal to 2. That's where I had to do it there. Let's try this one. If this doesn't do it, then I'll put a something in there to help us see what's going on. Still didn't. I added mine this morning, but I didn't think that had anything to do with it. Maybe that is where you do that at is if you go up to File, Build Settings, and if you take your in-game and drag and drop it in here, Scenes in the Build, and then close that. I didn't this morning, but I didn't think I even needed to do that if I wasn't going to do a build. Let me try that. Maybe that was. That'd be the only thing I really did different than. Did it work for you? Oh, okay. Yeah, so I need to switch back down, don't I? Sure enough, you have to put it in there. I did it just because I don't know why I did it. Um, this right here, we're going to see later on, is when you're trying to build a game for these different platforms. For example, if I wanted to create a Windows game that I could run outside of Unity, then this is where you come and tell it the settings. If I don't know what an Apple TV is, but if I wanted to create or PS4, if I wanted to create something for PS4, then I'd come here and do the settings. That doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like 0 would indicate there's no items in the array. Yeah. Yeah, if you do an equals here, it should work. 'Cause that's what I did in my code. Um, yeah. See, I put 2 here because I did it different. When I designed this, I had a one prefab on here to begin with. Because I thought for some reason you had to have that, and then I tried it just in class here because I thought, well, I shouldn't need that, and I didn't. Anyway, the assignment on that is I want you to go through and work with your yellow dots, putting yellow dots on your game, and come up with a game over, or you finish a level, or whatever you want to say in that regard. In case you're wondering, we could put a different scenes on there, such that when a ghost touches your Pac-Man, that means you die and you go to a different screen, says you lost. Does that make sense? What I'm looking for? Okay. And like I say, you might think, well, it's just as easy for me to drop on those yellow dots, directly like that. But the idea is again to start working with these objects, these prefabs, and get comfortable with them. Oh, you just you open up your project where you had for Pac-Man and just add it in there. No, I would just I don't know of any way to merge two projects together. I would open up your colliders, not redo it, and take the bit of code we did here and put it in there. See, like if you load this up first, then you'll have your code and it automatically stays loaded. So you'll find it be pretty easy to just add a copy of this code and put it in there. I'll go ahead and stop the recording there.